Welcome to Ohale Avatenu, Tense of Our Fathers. This week we are in Parshat Vayikra, and it is one of those interesting ones where if you're anything like me growing up as a child, I did not find this particular portion interesting at all. But it is in fact very important. However, today I'm actually going to start in the portion from the Apostolic writings in Matthew chapter 5. So, in Matthew 5, starting in verse 23, it says, "Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come to present your offering." So, yeah. That's interesting. Yeshua is talking about making offerings at the altar. Well, since the antinomian view is that he did away with the law, he got rid of it, he fulfilled it, and therefore it's no longer necessary, then this is a pointless teaching, right? The pointless teachings of Christ, as I want to talk to you about this particular message. Obviously, I do not believe that his teachings are pointless. I do not believe that he wasted his breath or his words telling us things that are not relevant, telling us things that are not necessary. However, if you take the antinomian view that the altar is no longer important, sacrifices are no longer important, bringing gifts are no longer important, or you like to come up with a revisionistic version of these things. Well, the altar is a metaphor for giving your money at your local church. Well, this view in my mind doesn't hold very well due to the seeming consistent nature of his otherwise pointless commands, right? So here we are, he's talking about making an offering at the altar. Elsewhere, we see that he implores us, well, before I get there, let's consider the antinomian perspective. A, he did away with the law, or B, only parts of it, right? Things that either he didn't reaffirm, or things like the ceremonial law, or the civil law versus the moral law versus the whatever, and these neat little categories that people like to break his words up into, which you don't really find in his text. But a lot of folks suppose that keeping the Sabbath isn't important anymore. But he tells us that we ought to pray that our flight does not happen on the Sabbath, right? So if we are to take that command seriously as though it has any relevance, then for some reason, for somehow, some inexplicable, fate in the universe, the Sabbath is relevant for disciples of the Messiah. Otherwise, again, it's another pointless teaching of Christ, right? If you're sitting there saying, well, he got away with the Sabbath, or he did away with the Sabbath, then why would he even say this? There's no point, right? If Matthew 5, if there's no point to the altar and offerings on the altar, why not simply say, yeah, don't bother with the altar, I'm about to do away with that, because all that I really care about is that you're okay in your heart with your brother and that he doesn't have anything against you, or whatever the case may be. He doesn't say those things, right? So you might be tempted to say, well, this was obviously before his death, right? So the temple sacrifices, they were still in play before his death, and And that's why, when he cleansed the leper, he told the leper to go off and do the things which are commanded in the Torah of Moses. But after his death, we don't, now that we have the death and resurrection and ascension of Messiah, we no longer engage in the temple service, and this is clear from the teaching of the apostles. Well, I would suggest that a careful reading of the book of Acts would indicate that the apostles themselves didn't hold to that doctrine, at least in terms of that understanding of their own teachings, because they regularly went up to the temple. They regularly engaged in the temple. They went up during the times of prayer. They even offered offerings, right? When the apostles sent Paul up to the temple to do the things that were associated with the completion of a vow, well, the completion of a vow includes an animal sacrifice. So, whatever your understanding of the apostles' teaching, the apostles' understanding of their own teaching was that engaging with the temple service was, even after the death, resurrection, and ascension of Messiah, was absolutely in line with the Christian faith and doctrine. So, the things that Yeshua said before he died were relevant not only then, but also to the faith, his disciples, the faithful of his people, for the time of their flight, which is obviously not talking about before his death, right? So he gave instruction that would be relevant after his death. The apostles still engaged with these things after his death, ascension, and resurrection. They still did those things, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, but they did those things until the temple was destroyed, and now that the temple is destroyed, we're living in a different era, and now those things really aren't relevant anymore. And the question then becomes is, okay, well, let's say the temple's rebuilt tomorrow. If the temple's rebuilt tomorrow and the apostles were engaging with the temple when they were here, do you think they would engage with the new temple when it arises? Do you think they would do the same things? They would show up for the times of prayer like they did in the book of Acts? And if you are a disciple of theirs and the Messiah in the same way, ought you not to do the same? See, there are a lot of people out there that are hostile towards the Sabbath. They're hostile towards the idea of bringing a gift to the altar. And there are a lot of people that will downright call the establishment of a temple to be the work of the Antichrist or whatever. And I would suggest to you that if we follow all the instructions of the Messiah and all the instructions and examples of the apostles, they all engaged with the temple and the temple service. They all engaged. And if we are the inheritors of their way, then we ought to do so as well. But you say, okay, yeah, fair enough. But that's a bridge I'll cross when I come to it. There's really no point today. The hazard being that this is not a wise approach. Why? Because if you're hoping to get to the wedding feast of the Lamb, but you're hoping to show up, not having been to any of the dress rehearsals, you're hoping to show up and you don't have your wedding garments, then are you ready for it, right? Do you know how to show up? Are you going to be like Uzzah, who, he sees the ark and it looks unstable to him, so he reaches out his hand to steady the ark, and he gets zapped on the spot because it was something he was not supposed to do. David and the priests, they put the ark on a cart instead of having it carried as was commanded, and a whole bunch of stuff went wrong. So you don't want to approach his holy things without very carefully studying how to approach, how not to approach, when to approach, when not to approach, and so on and so forth. But beyond that, you might be thinking, well, if I can't do all of it, why do any of it, right? Well, as it happens, if we go back to the actual Torah portion in Vayikra, in Leviticus, the clue is there, right? And you see this here and elsewhere in places in Scripture that for certain things you're supposed to bring a lamb, and if you can't bring a lamb, you bring 2 turtle doves, right? And if you can't bring 2 turtle doves, you bring 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour. Well, what does this mean? Well, I mean, God knows you can't bring what you don't have, right? So there are things we can't do because we don't have. So can I go up to the temple right now and bring my sacrifice? No. It's like the virgin who's waiting outside the wedding chamber can't go into the wedding until the bridegroom arrives, right? But you don't wait till the bridegroom arrives to go out and get your oil, right? You do everything you can to be ready for the bridegroom's arrival so that when the bridegroom arrives, when that final piece lands, as it were, then you can go up into the wedding feast, the wedding celebration. So if you don't have a lamb, okay, bring the 2 turtle doves. If you don't have 2 turtle doves, okay, bring the 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour. If you don't have the bridegroom, okay, don't go into the wedding feast, but have your oil ready, right? Because to him who has more will be given, and to him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. So what does this mean? It means we do the best with what we've got. It means that he has given us so much, and we offer the best that we have. If we have a lamb, we don't bring 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour. If we have a bridegroom, we don't just sit around outside the wedding feast and wait till the door is closed, right? We don't do those things. So you do what you can with what you have. You don't sweat what you don't have. You build and prepare in anticipation for the arrival of the things that are still outstanding. Why? Because if you're faithful with the little things, if you're faithful with the 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, maybe next time you'll have 2 turtle doves, and maybe next time you'll have a lamb, and maybe next time you'll have the obedience and the mercy and the things that you'll have the knowledge, so you don't have to offer an offering for unintentional sin. You'll have you won't have to repent for the violation that you never did, because you had the knowledge to say, I'm not going to do that thing, right? So studying this passage and studying these things is very important, because none of the teachings of Messiah are not relevant. Some of the things we may not be able to do right now. Obviously, I cannot walk and talk with him as Peter, James, and John did. Not in the same way. I can't actually follow him down the streets of the ancient Near East and watch him cleanse lepers and do the things, because he's not here, right? I don't have that ability. He's, it's like the lamb that I would like to offer, but I can't because there's no lamb. But what can I do? What can I offer? What can I bring the king? And that principle is baked into this Torah portion. It's baked into a lot of the things, but fundamentally, his teachings are not pointless. His teachings about going to the altar, bringing an offering, the apostles going up to the temple and bringing offerings, and being there for the times of prayer. If you had to try and do any of those things today, would you even know how? Would you even know when? Would you be like Uzzah and them that messed up and has to pay a price, right? You don't want to be in that place. So maybe you don't have a sheep right now, but you can learn what you're going to do. You can learn how to do. You can study the things so that your jar of oil will be ready, and when the bridegroom comes, when the outstanding piece shows up, you're ready to go in and you're ready to do the thing. You're not just waiting around and saying, well, it's not relevant right now. The bridegroom's not here right now. I don't need my oil right now. You don't want to be in that place. So while it might seem not relevant for today, it might not seem like, well, this is something I need to study. This is something I need to focus on. There is no temple. There's no priestly service. There's no this. There's no that. Whatever, whatever, whatever. Why did he tell us a certain procedure for going to the altar and bringing offerings? Why did he tell us to pray that our flight is not on Shabbat? If these things would not be relevant, they are relevant. He believed them to be relevant, which is why he told us these things. So if he believed them to be relevant and you believe in him, then they are relevant. And therefore you should find out why they're relevant, how they're relevant, and how to engage with the things which he taught you to observe and do. Shabbat Shalom.